Hello my dear friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I'm Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the status of CSR spending in India. CSR is the corporate social responsibility. First of all, let us understand what is the current affair that is with regard to the CSR or the corporate social responsibility. The official estimates of the government states that a bulk of CSR is being spent on developed states like Maharashtra, Gujarat and Karnataka. So these states are highly industrialized states and they are considered to be developed states. So it is estimated in the official estimates of the government that a bulk or a majority of the CSR or the corporate social responsibility funding is being spent on this developed states rather than those in developing states or underdeveloped states. So we will see this issue in detail in this lecture. But before going on to the details of the status, let us first understand what is CSR or what is corporate social responsibility. CSR or corporate social responsibility is a corporate initiative and this is initiated to assess and take responsibility for the company's effect on the society and environment. So what is the intention of corporate social responsibility? It is to promote positive social and environmental change. So a corporate or a company assess and take responsibility. That is, first of all, it assess its impact on the society or on the environment. So what impact does it make on the society or in the environment? And secondly, after assessing it, the responsibility is taken by the company. And this is provided through corporate social responsibility funding. So CSR is a procedure of assessing organizations' impact on society and thereby developing a responsibility towards the society. So here the company or the corporate is being responsible to the society or to the environment. And we have seen it first make an assessment, and the assessment involves a variety of aspects like customers, suppliers, environment, community, employees, etc. Now let us understand the status of corporate social responsibility in India. Now, India is the first country in the world to make corporate social responsibility mandatory. That means corporate social responsibility is compulsory in India, and this was the first country to make it compulsory or mandatory. And this was done through an amendment to the Companies Act of 2013. So by making an amendment to the Companies Act of 2013, the businesses can invest their profits in areas like education, environment, poverty, gender equality, hunger, etc. So certain areas were specified where corporates or businesses can make their investment. And the corporate social responsibility rules and guidelines in India also provides for companies of certain size. That means companies of certain size are required to mandatorily spend on corporate social responsibility. And it is the 2% of their average 3-year profit which must be spent for CSR or corporate social responsibility. So a company beyond a certain size will have to spend 2% of their previous 3 years average profits on corporate social responsibility. And the reason is to increase the engagement with the local community it operates in. So that is the prime reason of corporate social responsibility. The company would be engaging with the local community, and the working of the company or the conduct of the company will definitely have an impact on this local community. So in order to increase the engagement of the corporate with the local community it operates in, corporate social responsibility has been introduced in India. And also under corporate social responsibility in India, CSR regulations requires that companies or corporates needs to give preference to local area of operation. So the preference is given to local area of operation. So this is in brief corporate social responsibility in India. Now let us see what are the recent findings about the spending in corporate social responsibility in India or the status of corporate social responsibility in India. As we have discussed in the beginning, a majority or a bulk of the corporate social responsibility funding is being spent on developed states in the country. And official estimates have found out that about 1/5 of the amount that is spent on corporate social responsibility is spent in 3 states. that is Maharashtra, Gujarat and Karnataka. So 3 states account for 1/5 of corporate social responsibility funding during 2014-15 financial year to 2017-18 financial year. These 3 states are considered to be developed states because of the level of industrialization in those states, the manufacturing sector progress in the states, etc. Now, these states are also among the top states which has the highest GDP. So, in terms of GDP also these states fare well. Now, the second finding is regarding the correlation between states' economic output. So, a state's economic output is measured in terms of GDP. Here we are taking GDP at FC or the factor cost. So, what is GDP at factor cost? GDP is the monetary value of all the goods and services produced in an economy within a financial year. And GDP at factor cost means net indirect taxes are not included. So, here the correlation between states' economic output, that is GDP at factor cost, and the amount of CSR spent, that is taken, and the correlation is 0.93. So, a zero correlation means there is no correlation or no connection. If the value is 1, it means there is a perfect correlation. So, the value thus obtained is 0.93, which highlights the fact that there is higher correlation between the economic output of a state and the amount of CSR spent. That means in states which has higher GDP, higher is the CSR spent. So this makes it evident that CSR fundings are spent on the developed states in the economy where the GDP is higher. So these are the major findings in the official estimates. Now coming to the top states which receive the highest CSR fundings. First is the state of Maharashtra, which receives 25.20 billion rupees. Second one is Gujarat. It receives 19.69 billion rupees. Third is Karnataka with 16.38 billion rupees. And fourth is Tamil Nadu with 16.7 billion. And sixth is Rajasthan with 15.66 billion. So, we will see in all the states that these are all highly industrialized states. Now, being highly industrialized states, these states would have higher trade, higher manufacturing, higher production, higher employment generation, and all this leads to higher GDP or economic output. So, the top states are the states which are economically well off. The economic output in terms of GDP is higher for those states, and we have already seen the correlation between economic output and the CSR spend. So, it is high. There is high correlation. Now let us understand what are the concerns highlighted in the report findings. The first one is regarding the backward districts. 6 Indian states which has 60% of backward districts have received only 15% of the CSR funding. So it is evident that the backward districts in the country are receiving proportionately very lesser CSR funding, and CSR funding would have been appropriately distributed in this backward districts. It would have contributed towards the development of this districts. Now the second concern is regarding the majority funding from CSR. 5 states which we have already discussed, and this 5 states have almost 15% concentration of backward districts. They have received 70% of CSR funds. So they have only 15% of the total backward districts in the country, but they receive 70% of CSR funds. And third finding is that the CSR funding is in contrast to government allocation. So usually the government allocation is focused on poor regions or underdeveloped regions, but CSR fundings, they have been concentrated in developed regions. So there is a contrast. So government allocation goes primarily to UP, Bihar and MP. These are the 3 states which gets the maximum from central government budget, and in case of CSR it is to Gujarat, Maharashtra and Karnataka. So there is a contrast. Now one important concern regarding CSR funding and spending is that markets are not considered in the CSR funding. For example, states like Bihar, UP, Madhya Pradesh, etc., they are poor and underdeveloped states, and these states have lesser manufacturing units. So Obviously, the corporates who are funding to the CSR would not be located in the states because they have fewer manufacturing units. But even though they are not well developed, or even though they do not have enough manufacturing units, they are the top markets for many of these industries. That means the products from these industries, manufacturing units, which are located in developed states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, etc., it comes to the markets of these states like UP, Bihar, MP, etc. For example, two-wheelers, tractors, consumer goods. So there is a huge market for all these commodities in the lesser developed states. So these lesser developed states are a huge market for these corporates. But even though they are huge markets for these corporates or these companies, these states get very little share of the CSR budget from the top companies in the industry. So it is evident that the markets are not considered while CSR funding is made. Only the place where the manufacturing unit is located, that is the only thing that is considered. Markets are not considered. Now, the fifth concern is regarding the supply chain. The CSR guidelines does not cover supply chain as well. Like vendors, distributors, retailers, they all constitute the supply chain. So they are also not included under the CSR guidelines. So because they are not included in the CSR guidelines, most companies ignore them due to lack of mandate. Government has not included them in the guidelines, and therefore they are largely avoided while making the CSR funding. So these are the major concerns regarding the CSR funding in India, and these are the concerns brought about by the report on CSR funding in India. Now, what is the way ahead? What has to be done in order to make the distribution balanced? First one is to free up the resources for backward regions. If it is found that CSR spending is made on developed economies or developed states, government must reallocate its resources to backward regions. That means government must maintain a balance. In case of developed districts, CSR funding would supplement the government spending. So a proper reallocation by the government is necessary. And second one, there should be more focus on the market. The companies should consider key markets when they look for areas to implement their CSR. So a balance in the allocation is necessary. For example, markets would be mostly in the backward regions, and the industries would be mostly in the developed regions or the developed states. Gujarat, Rajasthan, Karnataka, etc. has the industries. But in case of market, they are mostly in the backward regions. So markets should also be considered by the corporates or the companies while making their CSR allocation. Now, third option is to involve NGOs or non-government organizations. So a coordination with an NGO can help identify backward areas and scale up the operations of the corporates in those areas. So a close association or coordination with the NGOs will help in better identification and also better allocation of the CSR resources or funding. You can find the PDF of this lecture on my Facebook page, and for any queries regarding your UPSC preparations, you can get in touch with me on my Facebook page, or you can email me at joyce.studyiq@gmail.com. Thank you. I wish you all a very good day.